multi-agency working. So a range of other exercises and specific training courses are scheduled across all of that area. The next tabletop exercise, for example, is to be held with the fire service hosting, and that will give an opportunity to explore, amongst other things, some of the issues associated with receiving evacuees. The next major training exercise, relevant to the Grenfell incident, is a multi-agency mass fatalities training session, which is scheduled for September this year.
Thank you very much, Norman. Members, can I just stress that we are ticking away in time. We have lots of time, we've got lots of questions, so if the questions and answers could be brief, you would allow more members in. Alison.
My question is to Councillor Barron, the Executive Member for Highways and Transport. The Council's been running the pilot car parking charges scheme in Woodley for nearly a year. Can the Executive Member tell me when the results of the comparison against the borough-wide system will become available?
Thank you very much. And I think that's Chris. Is it right tonight, Chris?
Yes. I'm enjoying myself very much. I said we're feeling.
Thank you, Alison. Can you answer the question?
Yes, I'll have a go. Thank you, Alison. The Woodley car parking trial has been running from September 2016, is due to expire in September 2017, the end of that month in fact, when it would revert to the Sunday and evening charging that operate elsewhere in the borough. Before making a permanent decision on our car parking in Woodley, it's essential that data from the trial has been available for a full year to show seasonal variations. The data collection and analysis has a 2 to 3 month lag period. Therefore, this takes us to the end of 2017 before an informed decision could be made. As you are aware, civil parking enforcement is programmed to go live across the borough in October. The associated improved parking enforcement will reduce congestion, improve road safety, and it's likely to have an impact on the parking behaviour of Woking Borough's residents, commuters and shoppers. The impact of civil parking enforcement is unlikely to be available until the end of 2018. Due to the timescales above, it is likely the Council will look to extend the current Woodley car parking trial at the Executive Committee in September until the end of 2018, but that's a decision, of course, not in my power, but I hope my colleagues would agree with that assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Do you have supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you assure me that the impact on Woodley car park revenues of the traveller incursions, as referred to by Councillor Baker, voting in petition, will be taken into consideration?
Yes, of course, it would be a valid comparison if we did not do that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm afraid to say we're out of time now. So the rest of the questions will be a written answer, and that is to Alistair, Abdul, Malcolm, and Clive. Fine. Thank you very much. Sorry? Yeah. We're on the ward members with more questions now. And learning a little bit from that experience, perhaps we could just speed it up a little bit because succinct questions. There were no supplementaries on more questions, so it's just a question and a quick answer. Right.
Keep your hands up.
Keep your hands up while Mr. Coldrick takes your name, address and telephone number. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Okay. Let's just so brevity, guys. Beth.
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor.
Very good, Beth. Well done.
My residents are asking about Bullmarsh Pool. They'd like to know what's happening. Apparently things seem to have ground to a halt.
Fine, good. Okay. Who's going to take that? It's a good question. Norman, could you be a succinct answer?
Things are in the planned development stage, so I
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Norman.
Norman, I didn't hear you. Could you repeat?
It's at the development of the plans stage, so no further news right now, I think, is the answer to that.
Okay, did you hear that? Yep.
I'm not sure I understood it. I heard it.
Well, in the development stage, I'm sure if you need more details, a telephone call with Norman would be more than appropriate. And I would recommend that. Clive?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this year, I asked several questions of the then Environment Executive Member about RE3's charges for DIY waste. A resident in my ward has recently asked if these charges are still in operation. 2 junior ministers have said that they shouldn't be. 2 junior ministers in the last government and the Cabinet Minister said that there shouldn't be any charges for DIY waste. Just before the former council leader was assassinated, he indicated in the press that he was willing to ask officers to suspend the charges. Nothing has happened since the general election. When will they be suspended?
Right, thank you. Could I just say that Keith Craig actually in the minutes have been resigned, so we shouldn't say assassinated. Please withdraw.
Thank you. There are a large number of people express opinions about this as an issue, including some members of the government and MPs. The advice that we're getting is the situation is not clear. We're expecting the government to come out with a clear policy statement on it sometime, sooner rather than later. Once we have that policy statement, we'll review our charges, our stance in the light of that. In the meantime, the charges will continue.
Thank you very much, Norman. Michael Furley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my question is to Chris Barron. Sorry, Chris, you have quite a few questions.
He loves it, really.
I know he does. I'll see how it goes with this one. In my ward of Falkland...
Go on, Mike.
In my ward of Auckland, most of the roads were built in the early 1980s and are in need of repair. I've read in the newspapers that there's some £1 billion to be handed over to the UK's councils to upgrade this country's crumbling roads. Unfortunately, I understand this will not be available until 2020. Would the Executive Member for Highways and Transport agree with me that Woking Borough Council use an appropriate amount of this money and it will be given to repair the roads in my ward? Others as well, but mine first.
Chris, did you do that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Michael. Dividing up the roads programme on a ward-by-ward basis would be contrary to effective highways asset management promoted by government and adopted by Woking Borough Council's executive last year, as the roads treaty would not target where they are most at need across the borough and therefore not deliver value for money for Woking's residents and businesses. Our technical assessments, including road scanning machines combined with visual inspections by qualified engineers, ensure parity about where the best use of the council's overall road maintenance resources go. Any additional funding made available for road maintenance from central government would be gratefully received by Woking Borough Council. However, I am very happy to accompany you, Michael, and your other 2 ward members who go around looking at the roads in Auckland that you're so concerned about.
Thank you very much, Chris. By the way, Chris, there are roads in Finch Hampton as well. Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got another question for Chris Barry. Reading University borrowed 28 million from central government as an advance against Section 106 contribution to the Shinfield SDL to build the Eastern Relief Road of Shinfield Village. The project is now over 12 months late and has been recent discovery of flooding in the new road up near the University Bridge, about the opposite end to where the river is. Have the technical issues causing this flooding been resolved, and when will remedial work start?
Thank you, Anthony. That's a very good question. A solution to the groundwater problem has been agreed between the works promoter, Reading University, their agents, Hochtief, and the council, who will take over the new road once it is finally completed. Works commenced at the beginning of June 2017, and Reading University have since communicated that the works are to be completed in August 2017. And on past performance, the Council lacks confidence Reading University will deliver on this timeline. Only when the Council is satisfied with the condition of the entire relief road, an opening date will be communicated by Reading University, and the route will then be finally and at last open and fit for purpose.
Well, we're united in that lack of confidence.
That's fairly unanimous tonight. Right. Imogen.
Hello, another one for you, Chris. Stand up. The Reading Road in Enbrook, they're currently building a cycle lane on it. It's quite dangerous to cyclists, and it's driving all the residents crazy because it's just a lot of building work going on that's affecting people coming in and out of town in that direction. Can somebody update us on when that's going to be finished? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imogen. The Reading Road Cycleway scheme commenced on time, as per the initial communications to members and local businesses and residents. I just can't comment on the way the scheme's gone, because it has gone behind schedule. The bus shelter that needed relocating unusually had a Scottish and Southern Electric board connection rather than the council connection, as would be expected to power the bus shelter. This unforeseen matter caused a 3-week delay while the council waited for SSE to disconnect the shelter, so to allow its relocation, as SSE were unwilling to attend the site earlier. This led to some modification of the programme to allow some progress. However, the contractor fell behind the programme slightly. As the project proceeds, the contractor is endeavouring to catch up to meet the original completed timescale. Temporarily impacted businesses were informed well in advance of the works and aggressively to implement a large improvement scheme on the network, funded by central government in this case. Local residents, businesses and motorists will inevitably have had to deal with some disruption while the works were underway. However, I confirm the Council committed to keep this disruption and inconvenience to a minimum, as on all high-risk projects. But I have an update which is much brighter, which is actually yesterday I had an update on progress, and it's good news. The project is now just about on track and progressing as per programme. There are still some parts of the scheme that need further attention. The bus stop at Enbrook is not finished due to a broken curbstone. These are the big castle curves, which I believe you know about, Imogen, having read the executive agenda. Used to bring the level up to meet the entrance to a bus. We hope these works can take place next week. After that, Queensbury will come and install the shelter. On your point about safety, I don't know whether you mean it's unsafe because of the works or what. Perhaps you could let me know. Thank you.
Unsafe to cyclists because there's like obstacles in the way.
No supplementary. Thank you. Hey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not quite sure who this is to, but I know somebody will pick it up. For some time now, the grant of £15,000 to Woodley's Town Centre Management Initiative, TCMI, has been built into the base budget. Recently, the Town Centre Manager has been called in to explain how this money is invested and what return the town receives from this. Whilst he has done this before and will do it again, he has not been required to do this for several years. In the last few months, several extra millions have been committed through the Wokingham Regeneration Project, at the same time as the grant to the TCMI appears to be being questioned. Can I ask the relevant executive member to provide reassurance that this is merely a new process and that the £15,000 to the TCMI is not at risk? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know who wants to take that.
That would be me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. The Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative has been supported by WBC to help maintain a successful town centre in Woodley, making it attractive for retailers and businesses, residents and the general public. The aspirations of the WTCMI complement WBC's economic development strategy, which aims to create a place where businesses thrive. WBC contributes £15,000, as Councillor Baker quite rightly said, towards the cost of employing the Woodley Town Centre Manager, which is paid as part of the economic development budget. WBC is a member of the Management Committee responsible for overseeing the policy and direction of the WTCMI plan and oversees the expenditure of funds and the annual budget. The Economic Development Officer also supports the Town Centre Manager regarding various projects and initiatives. The WTCMI and Town Centre Manager create a more dynamic town centre through varied events, activities and markets. The Town Centre Manager ensures that the effective communication between traders, residents and other official bodies involved in the town centre. The Woodley grant is reviewed annually, as in line with other grants, and has to make sure it provides value for money for the council taxpayer. The Woodley Town Centre grant will be reviewed as in line with every other grant. We don't foresee it changing at the present time, but it does need to give value for money and a return on our investment, and that's the reason why the Town Centre Manager has been called in.
Thank you very much, Ray. Laura.
Thank you. My question is to the Executive Member for Planning and Enforcement. Residents on the Carla Homes development are deeply disappointed that a marketing suite has been built by Carla without planning permission, where they had promised to build a play park. Please could you explain what the Council is doing to ensure that planning procedure is followed and the play park does get built?
Thank you for your question. Once the issue of the construction of a marketing and sales suite by Carla Homes without the benefit of planning permission was brought to the Council's attention, officers acted quickly to prevent further development and to save it from being brought into use. A planning application was submitted and is currently under consideration. In view of earlier questions, I would encourage board members to comment on that if they wish to. It is to be located on an open area, not intended for a play park equipment, and is to be landscaped as open space. The Council's also been advised that the play equipment has been ordered at the beginning of July, as requested by the Council officers. Carla will actually push for it to be delivered at the earliest possible time, hopefully before the 8-week lead time. But they're in the hands of the manufacturers. They will remove the unsightly hoarding remaining between the open space and proposed marketing suite, and they will also commence the preparation works for the play area prior to the delivery of the play equipment, so that it can be installed as soon as it is delivered to site.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Who is next? Lost my sheet. I think it's ENP. Councillor Pittock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you'll be interested in this one, at least partly. None of you, I'm afraid, Chris. Many of my residents eagerly await the installation of a safe route to Bowhunt School. Improvements underway to the footway down the 9-mile ride are welcomed by the wider community. Likewise, the cycle route using the greenway under construction between my ward and Barkham is also welcome for a variety of purposes. However, many residents will not recognise this as a safe route to school, given that it is a country route and increasingly looks like it will not be lit in the winter months. Many children are simply going to cycle down the improved 9-mile ride footway rather than walking. Will WBC address the issue of land illegally acquired by residents so that the improved 9-mile ride footway can be upgraded further to incorporate cycle usage? It will take a couple of years to be completed, but to date it is a process that the executive have been too frightened to start. For how long will the executive put the assumed Tory votes along the 9-mile ride before the safety of the wider community's children?
Thank you, Ian. Who's going to take this? Is this Wes going to take this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ian, for the question. The route down 9-mile ride to the Bowhunt School is a safe walking route to school. Appreciate the desire of some residents to have a cycle route. That is still under consideration. Obviously, as you point out, there have been difficulties with the residents' encroachment onto 9-mile ride, but it is still it is a matter which is still under consideration.
Thank you very much. Larry Patton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is actually to the Executive Member for Highways and Transport, and it relates to work on remodelling of Busgate at Tabby Drive and Basingstoke Road in 3 Mile Cross. Nothing seems to have started on this, and it was currently scheduled to have been done 15 months ago. Could I have an update?
Thank you, Barry. Chris, could you we're running out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do I get everything? Thank you, Barry, for the question. I'm pleased to report both the initial feasibility and detailed design work for this scheme have very recently been completed by officers, we are in discussion with our highways contractors, their traffic signal suppliers and the network management team to find a 3-week window to carry out the works. Due to the level of activity already booked on the highway network over coming months, this is proving difficult. However, it is a priority and we would hope to complete the scheme this calendar year.
Thank you, Chris. Imogen? Question? No?
The other one.
Please, I'm so sorry. Please, question?
Chris, one more. Sorry. Silence Lane in Winnish, also half of it to Nembrook. When is it going to get paid? Perhaps if we don't have the money, maybe we should all join the DUP, because that seems to be a way to get a lot of money thrown into the area.
Chris, I think you're on.
David could do it. Oh yeah, David could do that. We would get some money.
I couldn't quite understand that.
Simon's Lane needs to be paved. Needs to be redone. Thank you.
Simon's Lane needs to be
repaved. Paved.
A-V-E-D. It's an American
I will certainly look into that for you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
We're almost out of time, David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know whether many of you will realise, but in the storms earlier this week, 1.5 inches of rain fell on Maiden early in under an hour. Obviously, it's played havoc with the roads, but on that basis, we would like to ask a question of the Executive Member for Highways, please. Can you advise on the expenditure on the roads in Early over the last 5 years, and can you specify exactly how much has been spent in Maiden Early in that time?
No.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, David. Question. In the last 5 years, £2.1 million has been spent in Early Town, the 3 wards, and 1.2 million in Maiden Early Ward.
Thank you, members. That is the end of ward questions. I just thank Chris for answering most of them. Members? Mr. Bowery, I would just say thank you for answering most of them. Of course. Okay, now we come to motions, and we have one motion. I think that's for Lindsay.
Mr. Mayor, I have an amendment to the motion which we feel clarifies a number of areas better, and it's to be passed around now.
Right, you're passing around now, yeah? Has everybody got a copy? Linda's motion. I'm being advised here by Charlie on that. It's an alteration to a motion. Has everybody got a copy? Yes. Right. In that case, Lindsay, do you have a seconder? Yes. Could I identify that? So, thank you very much. So I think we could now allow you to introduce your motion. No? You can't?
I believe you have. I think the council has to agree.
I do. It's a good job you came today. Well, actually, I had to ask members to do if you accept that we will debate this revised motion. So can I see a show of hands to do that? That looks pretty unanimous to me. So now, you can present the motion.
Thank you. The basis of this motion came about after I'd spoken to one of our local senior police officers. I asked what the impact was on their budget from the heightened security level across the country in place at that time, and what would happen if we had a similar terrorist event in the Thames Valley area. He indicated that the extra cost and resources would have to come out of the existing budget. This rather surprised and concerned me. Not only are the police impacted, but so are the fire service, significantly impacted by the Grenville fire, and of course the ambulance and NHS services across the various parts of the country. We feel that central government and other associated bodies should provide additional finance and resources to the impacted emergency services to cover these exceptional events. There also needs to be lessons learned from such incidents. I certainly remember seeing the taller turntable ladder did not arrive at Grenville Tower until many hours after the fire started. I was also astonished to discover the ladder had come from Surrey and not from London. This would suggest we do not necessarily have the correct or sufficient resource available for our emergency services. And I'm sure there will be other such cases that we could find. Our emergency services are overstretched at the best of times, so it's vital that they receive additional support when they have to deal with either a terrorist attack or a significant incident as in Kensington. It is not acceptable for them to have to absorb these costs, thereby impacting on the day-to-day running of the services for a considerable time afterwards. They deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Sean, do you want to speak now or do you want to hold?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll reserve my right.
You'll reserve, yeah? Are there any other members who would like to speak? And keep your hands up clearly. We've got Andy Fry, Alistair Balti, Emma, Philip, going to go on, Barry and Angus. That's more than enough. More than enough. And if you could be succinct. Let's start with Andy Fry.
Thank you. When we vote on this, and I'm sure we're going to vote for it, I think we'd just like us to reflect on the situation locally. I was chatting to a serving fire officer last night actually, and he was telling me that they've just been told, the Royal Berkshire Fire Service have told them that they can have more than a 1% pay increase in a time of 2 or 3% inflation. They can have more than 1%, but if they have more than 1%, they've then got to decide which fire stations they want to close. So that's happening here. That's the choice. The heroes, the people we're praising, that's the choice they're being given. 1% or closed fire stations. In that light, Mr. Bacon, in that light, I would like to add that the Royal Berkshire Fire Authority, the people who run it, have just awarded themselves pay rises of up to 20%. So, yes, so there seems to be a standard of pay rises, which is good for the people running the fire authority, but is not good enough for the men and women of the fire service and of the other services. So when you are voting for this, just reflect on what your party is doing.
Move up your deficit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I support the amended motion, and I'm grateful to Councillor Ferris for the amended words that I suggested being incorporated, so thank you. The reason for adding the amendment is since the Grenfell tragedy, having spent time with the Chief Fire Officer of Berkshire and having attended meetings with the Fire Minister and Danny Cotton, the London Fire Brigade Commissioner, it is widely felt that it is too early to know specifically what to lobby for. I say this as there is no silver bullet solution, and simply lobbying for extra resources and funding may well not be the sole remedy or the right approach to take at this stage. For example, there has been comment made about high-rise aerial appliances. Such appliances, however, should not be considered as the solution to the risks associated with firefighting in high-rise premises. The most effective way to manage the risks associated with firefighting in these premises is through properly designed, installed and maintained firefighting measures within each building. In Berkshire, since the Grenfell tragedy, our fire service has visited all 156 high-rise residential buildings. 7 of these have ACM cladding, and samples have been taken and sent away for testing. Looking at funding in the near term of our own fire authority, the chairman has moved quickly to ensure that the senior leadership team have all the resources they need.
Especially for themselves.
In addition, there is a future funding workshop being held in September, which will look at this in detail. There is a developing train of thought that the fire service could, perhaps should, be more involved in the building regulations side of things than they currently are. Certainly in other countries, fire services have to sign off on new buildings before they receive their certificate of occupancy. I, for one, would welcome exploring a more coordinated role fire services and councils could play on this front. There is plenty of work going on at the moment, looking at improvements and solutions. A period of calm while this is undertaken is eminently sensible. Mr Mayor, it's perhaps worth highlighting that our excellent fire service in Berkshire costs a Band D home just £62.49 per year. I suspect many would support an increase to this going forward, given the integral role they play keeping our communities safe. If I may just pick up on a couple of the points that Councillor Croy made, there is no 1% pay rise being mooted at the moment. The actual one being mooted is up to 5%. And that's being negotiated at a national level via the NJC bodies. Secondly, I don't understand where this 20% pay rise figure comes from. That's not something I'm aware of, and I just thought I should try and clarify those a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Emma, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I too agree to this amendment. But could I just correct something with my fellow colleague, Lindsay? It's actually was the rotation thing was 32.5 minutes that it took to come. The reason I know this is a very close friend of mine is the head of the Scenes of Crimes investigation.
Okay. I thought it was ours.
Thank you, Alan. Angus. Mr Moss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I speak as one of the members of the Fire Authority as well as on this council, and in fact the lead member for strategic assets. I welcome working with this council with that responsibility on any lobbying regarding funding or resources. But specifically, we do need to await the outcome of the inquiries resulting from the tragic Grenfell fire incident, as my colleague Councillor Orty has covered. The Fire Authority will ensure that any lessons learnt from that will be built into the fire services procedures, whether or not they require further funding or resources. All brigades will sensibly call resources from nearby brigades in cases of serious incidents, as we saw locally in the Swinley Forest Fire, in the Windsor Castle Fire, and in the floods that we suffered 3.5 years ago. So I support the motion as amended.
Thank you very much, Angus. I think we have Barry Platinum.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'd like to respond to Councillor Ferris in particular, although I would say from the start that I support this motion, but I do want to give him the benefit of some of my experience on the Thames Valley Police Authority and the Thames Valley Police and Crime Panel. The Thames Valley Police and Crime Panel is responsible for scrutinising the budget that the Police and Crime Commissioner puts forward, and we do that each year in detail with regards to the ability of that budget to actually provide the services that are required within the Thames Valley. And that obviously includes emergency situations from that point of view. And this year we did acknowledge that there was suitable provision there. It has to be recognised that the Thames Valley Police hold quite high reserves specifically to cope with situations like this. Hopefully we're not going to be seeing that, but over my time on the police authority in the past, where there have been situations where up to £2 or £3 million have been required or have been spent, it's quite often the fact that the reserves cover it, but at a later stage the government then decide to actually reimburse the appropriate areas of the funds that they've had to spend on it. So I think that there isn't an immediate risk to other services provided in the Thames Valley when such an event occurs, but it certainly means that if the government doesn't provide all of that funding, that any money that could actually come from other routes, which this motion would support, I would support as well, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Barry. With no other speakers indicated, I can go to Mr. Murphy. You're not on the list.
You mentioned me,
Oh,
Mr. Mayor.
Murphy, yes, I do apologise.
I'm going to have to have words with you, Mr. Mayor, after
You've had
today's
words with me
performance.
all day long, actually.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, I support this motion, but as one of the council's appointed fire authority members, I feel I should point out to the Woking Borough residents, as well as those in Berkshire generally, just how well served we are by the Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service. We have in Berkshire a highly trained, community-spirited team that are very resourceful and forward-thinking. Within their existing budgets, they have just completed their first community hub fire station in Hungerford, and this location now provides a central location for fire, police and ambulance in that area. And there are plans to roll out this concept throughout the region. The RBFRS have just purchased the first of a new era of fire appliances, the first of these being based in Slough, Langley, Maidenhead and Caversham Road, Reading. These appliances are the same in every way as those being purchased in Oxfordshire and Hampshire, thus allowing for fully compatible cross-county support between three neighbouring services, an excellent forward-thinking initiative. Wokingham Fire Station act as first responders for South Central Ambulance Service, getting to heart attack victims within 4 minutes, unlike the new set target of 15 minutes by the government. This has been instrumental in saving many lives in this area. So whilst I support this motion, I would say don't just throw money at the perceived problem. Look at the best practices that the likes of the Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service have created and seek to extend this lateral thinking countrywide. And final point is, it is the open day for Woking Fire Station on Saturday, and I would recommend every member that can should try and go and see those guys in action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry I missed that. Thank you very much. Okay, there now being no other speakers, I can refer to the second of the motion. Would you like to speak now, Charlotte?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the night of the 14th of June, at least 80 individuals needlessly lost their lives and over 70 people were injured. The extraordinary bravery, courage and sheer tenacity of the heroes who make up our fire, police and ambulance services must be praised here tonight. There are so many incredible stories that have emerged from this tragedy, and that can only strengthen our resolve to ensure that this sort of national disaster can never be allowed to happen again. It would be easy for us all to conclude that failures of this nature are solely due to lack of resources, but I'm sure that the inquiry will shed a new light on many of the different failings. Perhaps what will manifest as an early lesson, in addition to the overall lack of fire safety and building standards, will be the examination of where important equipment is located to adequately resource incidents of this scale, and how to coordinate all of the different elements of the local authority, voluntary, charity and emergency services together in these situations. I strongly urge all members from all parties to back this amended motion to make very certain that all our vital emergency services continue to receive the necessary resources and funding that they need to perform the crucial and remarkable work that they do day to day.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, as proposed, is amended motion 397. I'll invite Lindsay Ferris to sum it. Then we'll go to the vote.
Thank you. I think it was a very interesting debate, and I think this shows that this is one of those issues that there is unanimity across the council here. This is a very important issue, and I was concerned when, having spoken to the officer, that if we had had a problem here, or if we should have one, that there could be a problem for us. And I think that I agree that we don't just throw money at things, but at the same time we need to learn from and some of the feedback. I thought it was a very interesting comment about £62 for our fire service. I think when you have figures for your council tax going up over £2,000, it shows how little of that is there, and it's a vital service, and I think it's a neglected service that's been easy to pick on, in my opinion, over the last few years, and I think we need to show that it's one of those important ones. We haven't spoken so much about the police or the ambulance services, but again, if we look at all the terrorist attacks and with the fire service, all of those emergency services had tremendous work and effort and time and cost associated with what they're doing, and I felt so helpless when I was looking at the towers where all were, and I did look for a while before the taller turntable ladder came, and I thought, we must be better than that, and I felt that there was something that was not right. So I think this is very good. I think we can push through to the government to say that take account of what's going to happen, all the necessary changes in practice, but whatever, make sure our emergency services have the finances and resources available, because we don't know where this can strike. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lindsay, and thank you for the debate. I think we can now go to the vote. And those members in support of the amended motion, that you all have a copy of. You do? Yes? Will those in support of that motion please now show? That looks to be totally unanimous. Thank you, members. I will ask if there was any voting again, but I believe that no abstentions. That's carried by the hands. Unanimous. That's very, very good end. We have a very, very interesting debate this evening, which I have actually quite enjoyed doing. I didn't know I would, but I have. So we've come to the end of the meeting. I just remind you now that we don't meet again until September, and I wish you all happy holidays. Have a good break. Well done. Thank you.